You're watching Oilers Nation every day with Tyler Yaremchuk. Your one-stop shop for all things Oilers.
The Edmonton Oilers are in Florida for the first time since, let's not get into that with the lead. I really don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about Matthias Ekholm slamming his stick on the ice as the horn sounds and the crowd in Florida goes nuts and Bobrovsky throws his gloves into the air and the Panthers capture the Stanley Cup. I don't want to think about that at all. It's just really fucked up. Show's a presentation of Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. We come to you live from the Sports Closet studio. You can check them out online at sportscloset.ca. I am Tyler. He is Liam, wherever he may be. We're separated again because I'm sick and I don't want to come into the office and get other people sick. So, Liam, stick taps to me, I guess, for being just such a good teammate.
Yeah, it's very, very commendable of you to stay away from all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just care so much about you guys.
It's a lot quieter here without you. Not in like a negative way, a positive way.
I've only been to the office one time in the last 3 weeks now because of the Four Nations stuff. And then Tuesday I was busy and then I got sick for 2 days. So I do miss you guys. I really wish I was in the office, but just wasn't in the cards. And to get into what I was talking about for the lead, Liam, I don't know if this like resonates with the people watching the show or anything like that, but I remember you and I had a moment during the series against Dallas when we were in an Uber going to a Target to try find a new suitcase because ours broke. And we were like, man, it is crazy that the Oilers are in the Western Conference Final. Like, we travel for the road games and, the home games are so busy back in Edmonton for us with, this being our job and whatnot, that you kind of get caught in like a weird cycle of the playoffs where like when the games start, that's the first second where you take like a deep exhale from like the craziness of your day. And the playoffs go by in a blur. And I was talking about Game 7 of the Cup Final. Like, my path to get down to Florida for Game 7 was, fly from Edmonton to Toronto to Tampa, miss my flight, drive 5 hours from Tampa to Fort Lauderdale. Then immediately the next day after the Oilers had lost, I had to fly to Vegas. I did the draft for 5 days. It was our free agent show back in Edmonton as soon as I came back. Then I was on summer holidays and I just didn't want to think about hockey. And I still have moments where I think back or I see the clip of the Oilers or of the Panthers celebrating their Stanley Cup win, and I'm like, man, the Oilers were one game away. Like, to me, it doesn't feel like they were that close, even though my brain can comprehend that they were that close. And I think it's because the playoffs are such a blur, but it's like, shit, they almost won the Stanley Cup in the building they are going to be in tonight.
Yeah, it's it is weird, like you said, when you're kind of in the motions of it all and like you're not really thinking about the game. We have so much on our minds on like a day-to-day basis of what we're doing anyway. But yeah, I think the moment for me when it really, like, even after the Dallas moment that you mentioned is when we were at that bar in Fort Lauderdale the first day we got there, and we were sat in like right on the balcony looking out, and there was a lamppost and it had like the Stanley Cup Final banner down it. And that was cool. But then do you remember the waitress being like, oh yeah, there's a big hockey game this weekend, I think. So yeah, it's just two best teams in the league playing right now. Just didn't know.
Stanley Cup Final.
Yeah, that was cool. But yeah, it's you kind of do forget, just like when you're in this moment today of like the Oilers are on a 4-game losing streak. Yesterday I said I think this team needs a lot to win the Stanley Cup. And I still truly do believe that, but they weren't that far away last year, like 1 or 2 goals away. And you can blame whoever you want for the reason they didn't win, but they didn't win. But the team was good enough to get them there in that moment, which maybe should give us a more positive fuel to think that this team can get it across the line this year too.
Yeah, it also kind of like, as I was getting ready for the show today, and obviously you're thinking about the Cup Final, because how could you not? It also was a reminder as I look back through that playoff run of like just how much good fortune you also need to get to the Stanley Cup Final. Like, they were so close to losing that series to the Vancouver Canucks. Like, you think about Evan Bouchard's overtime winner, going in off of Ian Cole. You think about Evan Bouchard winning the game late, 30 seconds to go, right? Like, that game there almost went the other way. Like, there were 2 games in that series that the Oilers very, very easily could have lost. And then you even think, not only do you win game 6, but you go in game 7. JT Miller takes a shot with under a minute to go that goes off Nikita Zadorov's leg. That shot probably beats Stuart Skinner if it gets through. Like, there were so many little breaks throughout that run where things could have just flipped on a dime, and they could have been done in round 2. They could have been done in the Western Conference Final, which is, again, another reminder as we come down the stretch. Pretty crazy. There's only 23, 24 more games left in the regular season here for the Oilers, but like, we're almost back at the playoffs, and it's not easy. I think a lot of us, I'm guilty of this too, are just kind of sitting there going like, how are they going to get back? Like, they're going to get back this year. What's the path look like? There's no way this team loses, but like, it's very, very difficult to get back to where they were.
Yeah, it is. And I think too, to just keep reminiscing on it, like the Dallas series, they have to win that game 1 in overtime. Game 2 was a pretty tight one, if I'm remembering correctly. And then game 6, obviously Stuart Skinner plays unreal. Weren't they down 3-1 in game 3 or 4 as well, or something like that? I can't recall which one it was, but the Oilers got lucky, but they also played really well throughout that as well. And even Florida, I know they were down 3-0, but game 1, they probably should have won that game. Like, Bobrovsky was unbelievable in that one in particular. But yeah, the run they'll have to go on this year is maybe harder than what they'll have to do, than what they had to do last year. Like, you maybe play LA again for a 4th year in a row, and there was a reports yesterday from Nick Kyprios of LA being like, we cannot have this happen again to us. So they're going to be motivated. Then Vegas seems better, obviously, than they were last season, and then you get to the Western Conference Finals, hypothetically, and all of a sudden you're facing off against Connor Hellebuck and the Winnipeg Jets. And it's a tough task, whichever way you look at it in the Western Conference, but the Oilers are definitely more than capable of doing it. Like, obviously, with the trade deadline coming up, everyone's looking at where they could upgrade. We don't really know because we're in this weird world right now where we have no idea if Evander Kane is going to be available or not and what money they could spend. But I do believe that additions will be made that help them get it over and at least get back to the Cup Final, or at the minimum, which isn't obviously ideal, the Western Conference Final.
Yeah. I just keep looking at the game logs now from the Stanley Cup Final. That game 1 loss with Bobrovsky, and you'll get people in the organization who will tell you this. That's the one. They don't look back at that 4-3 loss in game 3 the same way they look back on that 3-0 loss in game 1. Bobrovsky standing on his head. Like, the Oilers really felt like that was their game to win, and when they lost that, I think that's part of the reason they lost game 2 is because it was like, damn, we missed our chance to like take the one we needed to on the road. But anyways, we'll put
just in game 1, not to bring this back up, but I think it was Hyman coming down the boards on McDavid, and he put it right through Bobrovsky's 5-hole, and it went off the post. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Like that, I think it was 0-0 at the time. That was relatively early in the game, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe just 1-0, and that would have changed the entire outlook of it. But either way, we're not there right now. We're at game 62 of the regular season, and the Oilers are looking to snap a 4-game losing streak.
Yeah, it's not going good right now for the Edmonton Oilers. Over in the YouTube chat, if you guys have any deadline-themed questions, drop those in. We'll maybe do a little, Ask Oilers Nation later on. If you got maybe some off-the-radar trade options, too, we can handle a bunch of stuff like that. But for now, Liam, let's get set for the hockey game tonight. It's our game notes, and it's brought to you by Service Credit Union. The Service Big Share Contest is back. It's better than ever, and it's your chance to win $1 million just by saving money. Anyone can enter by becoming a member and saving with Service. Every $500 saved gives you 5 entries into the Service Big Share Contest. Contest ends April 30th, 2025. Skill test required. For rules, visit service.ca/win. Liam, it is game 59, not game 62. Little fact check. But here's some game notes for you. Coombsy handled the full article over on the site, but the last time the Oilers lost four games in a row came early in the 2024 season. The team had 2 different 4-game skids back in October and early November. Obviously, they went 2-9-1. Not great. The last time the Oilers lost 5 games in a row, though, Liam, you have to go all the way back to 2021, 2022. Like, this team has avoided prolonged slumps actually fairly well over the last number of seasons. Losing 5 in a row, though, that is a big, big number. There is a lot of pressure on this team to not let that happen tonight.
There really is. And we talked about it yesterday a little bit with Frank of just obviously the scenario of going back to the Game 7 building, blah, 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 but also like no Matthew Tkachuk tonight for the Florida Panthers, which is a gigantic hole for them. He is such a great player, and obviously we see he's kind of doing his media rounds right now too, which some people like, some people don't. I'm fine with it, but either way, like that blue line probably isn't as good as it used to be too. Like, don't get me wrong, like this team is a great team still, like the Florida Panthers, but the Oilers, I think, do have the capability of coming out of their slump tonight, because at the end of the day, like, they're clearly not as bad as they're showing these last 4 games, and they've shown many times in the past. Like you said, the last time 5-game losing streak was 2022. They are a really strong team, and they can get up for these big games. And tonight, like, they don't really have a choice but to get up for this game. Otherwise, you are going into Carolina facing potentially an 0-5 road trip. Like, that is terrible.
Yeah, and Carolina, again, I know the Rantanen thing's not looking good, but they're never an easy out. This is such a tough road trip. Liam, before we get into the Panthers side of things a little bit, I went and dug up some numbers just on how we're getting a full look at the room here from you. There we go. That was really weird.
That was really weird.
Anyways, the podcast listeners don't know what the hell is going on right now. But we talked yesterday briefly about like frustration with the offense here. Like, why can't this Oilers offense go out and score the way they used to? So I went and dug up some numbers for all of this. So on the season as a whole, and I'm not sure if we have a board here to show the YouTube people a little visual on this one, but at 5-on-5 for the season as a whole, they are first in shots for per 60. They are fourth in high danger shot attempts per 60, second in expected goals for per 60. So again, top 5 in kind of like 3 key metrics that would show you how they generate offense. In terms of actually scoring, they're 9th in the NHL. They're a top 10 offense this league. I'm not trying to sit here and be like, the Oilers offense is miserable, blah, 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 blah. Shooting percentage, they're still 25th in the NHL, though, which I find very interesting. We talked a lot earlier in the season, Liam, about how this team just needed a run of luck. And eventually, you are going to get a 2-3 week stretch where every single puck just goes in. And honestly, the Oilers haven't really gotten that this year. The fact they're generating as much as they are, just such a, whatever metric you want to look at, they're a top 5 team when it comes to generating, yet they're 9th in goals and 25th in shooting percentage. Like, that's weird to me. That doesn't line up. This team hasn't had the offensive heater that we're looking for out of them. Like, look at Washington, man. They just went on a run where it was 6 straight games where they scored 4 or more goals. They scored 15 goals in 2 games over the weekend, including the 7 against the Oilers. And it's like, man, we haven't seen that from Edmonton yet this year. Anyways, that's the full season. Look at the right side of this column and the month of February, which comes to an end tonight with the game against the Florida Panthers. 11th in shots for per 60. You go from 1st to 11th. High danger shot attempts. You go from 4th to 31st in the NHL. Expected goals from 2nd to 19th. Goals per 60. Actual goals going into the net from 9th to 19th. And all of that, your shooting percentage ranking has gone up. The actual percentage has dropped 2.2%, so maybe that's a little disingenuous, but just focus on the top part of these numbers here. They are generating way less than they were on the season as a whole. And again, those full season numbers include the February numbers, which just, again, illustrate the gap between all of this right now. They aren't generating right now, Liam. And Kay Waddy is in, says it's perimeter. Hard to trust the fancy stats. And I get it. But again, they're not getting perimeter, interior, whatever. They're not generating anything in the month of February, and that really is disappointing, because this team, if there's any part of their game that they should be able to consistently lean on, it should be their offense.
I wonder how much consistent line mates comes down to this, you know? Like, I just in February, like, it feels like every single game someone new is out of the lineup. The lines are just so shaken up. Like, I do think a little bit of consistency is just going to help this team out a little bit. And we addressed it yesterday, too. Obviously, Connor McDavid not playing to the level we know he's more than capable of. Zach Hyman, 2 goals. Nuge hasn't exactly been on offensive juggernaut either. It's just kind of Leon Draisaitl who's basically finding his way alongside, whether it be Podkolzin, who doesn't even have a goal in February. I'd be surprised if he did, if he had a point, to be honest. And Arvidsson, who loves his slap shots down the wing off the rush. We all know how good those are. And then you have Jeff Skinner, who just like can't find his way in the top 6 consistently. Like, I really like, and I know we'll get into the lineup a little bit later, but just like, I feel like the way they are tonight is how it needs to be for just give them a run, even if it's 3 games, to be honest, just to see if they can actually like get some quality together and see what they can build. Because also too, like, I understand the idea of having everyone play together in the playoffs. Like, who knows what's going to happen? Like, players could get injured, knock on wood, nothing too crazy happens, but it keeps going, and then you get to the deadline, it's like all of a sudden, you don't even know if you need a top 6 winger because your top 6 wingers have been playing in the bottom 6 so much this season, and it's just, see how pro I was then, just kept going. And, and then, yeah, like, I would just like to see some consistency, and I think we'll see those numbers in February really make a switch in March.
Yeah. So Podkolzin went on a run. Interesting you bring him up, where he scored 3 goals in 6 games. Last one coming on January 15th. Since January 15th, he has 3 assists in that stretch. And that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 hockey games where this guy's getting consistent top 9 minutes and has 3 assists. Like, that's part of the problem here. And again, you can go look at the way this forward group is producing offense, or not producing offense, I should say. Outside of McDavid and Draisaitl in the month of February, even McDavid only having 6 points in the 7 games, but like, Corey Perry has 3 goals. He's next on the list in terms of most productive. Like, that's crazy. Look at this. Point leaders without 97 and 29 in the month of February. Nuge has 5 and 7. Jeff Skinner has 4 points in 6 games, and they keep bleeping healthy scratching him. Like, Podkolzin, 1 point, brutal. Kapanen, 1 point, terrible turnovers, takes penalties, awful. Matthias Janmark has had opportunities, 1 assist in 6 games. Adam Henrique, where the hell is Adam Henrique? This is a guy who was scoring 25 goals a season with the Anaheim Ducks, comes to Edmonton, and it's like he's got cement hands. Like, when was the last time Adam Henrique, like, and maybe this isn't a compliment, maybe it's an indictment, but like, I can think of times where Vasily Podkolzin's in a dangerous area and doesn't shoot the puck, and it's like, damn, dude, shoot the puck. I can think about times Matthias Janmark looks good on a rush, does something good on the PK, gets a chance in front like he did the other day, and just dusts it off, and it's like, damn, well, at least he was in the right spot. When was the last time one of Adam Henrique, Connor Brown, you could probably even throw Victor Arvidsson in there, when was the last time one of those 3 guys was even in a dangerous area? It's unacceptable.
Yeah, it does feel like Henrique and Brown have really just vanished into the shadows this last little bit. Like, Brown's last goal, it wasn't even his goal. It was the one that went off Janmark's hand. I feel like that was just the last opportunity I can think of. I feel like for Henrique, if I'm really picking a game, it would have been maybe right after Christmas. I think he scored against LA or Anaheim, one of those 2 teams, or maybe we criticized him. I can't remember what it was, but that seems like a memorable moment for him. But it's crazy. And here's a question for you, and I think I know what your answer will be. But a few years ago, and it didn't work, but I feel like it's a little bit different. The Toronto Maple Leafs went out and basically just like rebuilt their blue line at the deadline. Do you think it's worth like going a little harder at this bottom 6? And I feel like it's a different approach and not as drastic, but like, you move Henrique if you can, and you grab like just 2 quality bottom 6 players, or just you don't even have to spend all these $3 million. You just find like a good solid 4th line centerman and maybe a 4th line winger, and like maybe they just become more defensively responsible, add a bit more speed to the lineup, that kind of angle to it. I just really, really wonder if they're thinking about that stuff, because the other part of it too is obviously Knobloch came out and said yesterday this team is fragile, and I think Spector tweeted it from what something Mike Rupp had said on Gregor's show. It was like, fragile is just the younger brother of soft. So to me, that really does say something if your head coach is coming out saying something like that. Because the way I took it was like, they're like emotionally not invested, but just like they get broken down very easily. But I think he meant like on a physical side of things.
Yeah, and listen, I don't really have a problem if the Oilers aren't going to be overly physical, if they're not going to go bang bodies and whatever, but like, play hard. You don't have to go lay a big hit, but you need to forecheck. You need to create chances. And like Adam Henrique, Liam, at 5-on-5, I will read you. This is high danger shot attempts for Adam Henrique in the month of February. Against Tampa, 0. Washington, 0. Philly, 0. Colorado, 0. Chicago, 0. Toronto, 0. Detroit, this was in January, 1. The last time this dude had an attempt from a high danger area at 5-on-5 was January 30th. The last time he scored was January 23rd against the Vancouver Canucks. That was the last time he scored at 5v5. Your camera just does not want to work today. What is going on with that?
We literally switched them too. I'm not sure what exactly is happening, but we're trying to figure things out.
I'm struggling back here. I'm struggling, but we're going.
Back to my point, like Adam Henrique, just in terms of actual shots in the month of February, again, he played in 6 games for the Edmonton Oilers in the month of February. He had 3 shots on goal. How does that happen? How are you that unproductive? It's crazy, man. Like, and here's the problem. I know you're talking about rebuilding the bottom 6. Like, is there an NHL be a GM world where like you trade Arvidsson for a third and you trade Henrique for a second, and then you got some assets and you're more inclined to trade your first next year and you do something crazy? Yeah. But who's touching Victor Arvidsson? He's a cap throw-in if you do a deal. If you do a bigger deal, I should say. Who even wants Adam Henrique? Like, his cap, it's not bad, but like someone will give you a third for him maybe, but you're not getting anything good for Adam Henrique. And then you need to talk about flipping and getting guys back. Like, I think your better bet is just to cross your fingers and hope you get a good Adam Henrique for 2 months.
I think you're more right than I was. I wonder if they would just call it quits and just be like, okay, we're fine just getting a 4th or 5th for Henrique because we know we have this other guy lined up, and you kind of line it up as like a combined deal, you know what I mean? Kind of like what we talk about with Savoy and Skinner for Mike McLeod and that kind of stuff. I wouldn't be like so opposed to that stuff. I really don't think that's the way they're gonna go. I'm just trying to think of like different avenues of what they're gonna do. But I just went and looked as well, Ty. Like someone like Connor Brown, for example, I just want to give him a bit of praise, I guess. I know he doesn't have any offensive points. He's actually not been on the ice for a goal against at 5-on-5 in February, which is impressive considering how many goals they've leaked. He's been on the ice for 3 goals for, and Connor McDavid. This is crazy. On the ice for 1 5-on-5 goal in February. On the ice for 11 against. That is bonkers.
That's crazy. Again, and Lance says it. We might be overly critical of this team right now. Maybe.
I just think they're maybe just getting exposed a little bit for like maybe what they really were in the entire season. Oh, we're over here. So that's
I actually kind of like. Crazy. I kind of like this angle.
It's got that ski lodge vibe with the wood behind them for sure.
That threw me off so much. Let me adjust here. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking is like maybe the players who were chipping, we all know this bottom 6 is probably more inconsistent than it proved to be earlier in the season, and now that's just happening more and more.
Yeah. All right, let's get into some comments for our friends at Odd Company Brewing and the all-new Nation Beer Everyday Lager. Pick it up at one of 2 locations in the Edmonton area. Or go right to the source, Odd Company Brewing, or in the Ritchie location, or downtown Edmonton, one of Edmonton's best breweries. We actually got a lot of great breweries, but I am a sucker for Odd Company. They do some really, really good work. What do we got going on in the chat? Lance, talking about blowing up the bottom 6. Come on now. Okay, Lance, I agree that maybe we're being a bit overly critical, but also I don't think that's a come on now kind of idea. Like, This bottom 6 has stunk all season, and it's a constant problem here in Edmonton, and that's why I think we're quick to criticize it, because it's like, coming into this year is like, okay, we got Arvidsson and Henrique and Skinner and this scoring depth. Perry's back. Brown, and remember the third line of Rico, Brown, and Yaremchuk in the playoffs, how good that was. And then to just have another season where we're having the same conversations is very, very frustrating. Mr. Burns, it's a month when Hyman hasn't been on this line the whole time. I will say this about Zach Hyman. He is not immune to criticism right now, because this is about the worst Zach Hyman has looked in his Oilers career. Usually a guy who you look at and it's like, you never criticize his work ethic. He is always, even if his hands aren't there and the offense isn't there, he is putting in effort on the forecheck. Zach Hyman is a ghost of himself right now. And that comes back to the McDavid thing of like, again, I don't want to criticize a guy who was a 50-goal scorer last year in Hyman. I don't want to criticize Connor freaking McDavid, but the bar for these guys is higher. And the bottom line is the Oilers need more from those two.
Yeah, at the end of the day, he's supposed to be a first-line right winger on this team, and he's just not producing at all. He has 2 goals in February, and like in moments when this team needs goals big time, and he's just not been there to show up for the team. Like, we all love Zach Hyman. We all think he should have been on the Team Canada roster and all of that, but he's not showing up at the moment. I think tonight, again, is just a good opportunity for many players to step up and showcase that, hey, we're actually really good, and this is just a bit of a blimp in our season.
Someone, K. Waddy, the Kane situation is handcuffing management. Someone commented this yesterday in the chat, and the more I thought about it, the more this is just what I think good cutthroat organizations do. If Evander Kane, April 2nd, goes, I'm coming back, and you go, okay, Evander, if you think you're ready to play, you're going to Bakersfield and we're doing all that, and you're skating for 2 weeks, and if he says, no, I'm not, then you know what you do? You go, Evander, you're going on waivers. And do you think if you gave Evander Kane the choice, like we all know generally the kind of guy Evander Kane is, I guess, to put it bluntly, you think if you gave Evander Kane, excuse me, the choice, if you said you can do your conditioning stint here, or you can go on waivers and risk getting picked up by anybody, right, or going to do it in Baco, what do you think he does?
I hope he's staying out for those next couple of weeks, right? If you say, I kind of thought that too. Someone tweeted at us today as well, being like, if he turns around and he's like, I'm going to be back, they could trade him. Isn't his trade clause modified after March 1st?
Yep.
I mean, that's going to be a difficult one to move, but also too, if you like pot him through waivers, no one's claiming his $5.1 million cap hit, are they? Obviously, quite a bit of it is going to go on, what do they call it? Not all of it can go through. I can't remember the dead money, right? So there's that part of it too. But like, he needs to play ball here, and I ultimately do think he would play ball when it all comes down to it. He probably wants to win a Stanley Cup, and I know Frank came on here yesterday and being like, he's not Kucherov or Stone, and like, you don't have to have those conversations with those guys. Like, I don't think he's gonna come back, but obviously there's a lot of smoke on it right now.
And again, I know that you can only bury so much of the contract, so it wouldn't help their cap situation if they were to spend the money. I'm saying, like, you purely use that as a tactic to be like, Evander, you are not playing till the playoffs. And people are saying, who would claim him? Again, first off, if someone claimed him, hell yeah. I'm out of his money for next season. We got more wiggle room in the summer. Like, losing Evander Kane on waivers, I can't believe I'm even saying that, but like, it would be totally fine. Long-term wise, you're very much okay with not having Evander Kane on the books for next season. This is probably his last season with the Oilers anyways. I think they're going to find a way to move on from him in the summer. And, you know, people are saying he doesn't want to leave. Great. Well, then sit out till the playoffs. Simple as that, Evander. If you don't want to go on waivers, you sit until the playoffs. Those are your options. Again, the New York Rangers looked at their captain, Jacob Trouba, and said, waive to go to Anaheim. He said no. And they said, okay, cool. You're going on waivers and you're going to Columbus. And he went, you know what? Anaheim sounds good. Like, good organizations just do that. So, yeah. I know we're going to get to our guest in a little bit here, Liam, but let's do a lineup report for our friends at Oodle Noodle. You only have 2 more days left if you want to win your way into the nation vacation through Oodle Noodle. Go to any location in the Edmonton area, and just by walking in, no purchase necessary, you're going to get entered, or you can enter, to join us in Vegas, Nation Vacation, presented by Flair Airlines. If you buy some noodles, you get a second entry as well. What do we got? The Florida Panthers, Liam. How about this? This is also from Game Notes. 9 players who suited up for the Panthers during their Stanley Cup run last spring left during the offseason. Brandon Montour, Vladimir Tarasenko, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Steven Lorenz, Anthony Stolarz, Kevin Stenlund, Nick Cousins, Ryan Lomberg, and Kyle Okposo, all no longer with the team. I'd say outside of, I guess, Montour and OEL, everyone else relatively minor. The core of this team is still there, but they are going to be without Matthew Tkachuk tonight, which is obviously a major loss. He came second in the Four Nations faceoff, if you forgot, and then obviously had an injury. So that's going to keep him out for a while from the Panthers. But Barkov with Reinhart and Verhaeghe is the top line. Barkov, 15 points in his last 10 games. He's on a great run right now. Sam Bennett with Evan Rodriguez and Maki Samaskevich, one of my favorite names to say in the NHL. Anton Lundell with Jesper Boqvist and Eetu Luosterainen. Thomas Nosek with Jonah Gadjevich and AJ Greer. Then the blue line for the Panthers is Forsling with Ekblad, Mikkola with Kulikov, Uvis Balinskis with Nate Schmidt, and the expected starter tonight is Sergei Bobrovsky. What do you make of this Panthers team, Liam?
Obviously still solid. Some great names. Don't want to let that get kind of missed on this whole thing too. You mentioned Mackey there. The rest of them are awesome as well. But even with Matthew Tkachuk out of the lineup, there's still obviously some very dangerous players. Like Evan Rodriguez is someone who obviously was pretty good against the Oilers in the Stanley Cup Final next season. So there's still a lot of threats, but I do think that bottom six probably isn't as deep as it has been in previous years. So maybe a spot the Oilers can try and expose there. But again, that's going to come down to the bottom six showing up for them. Their blue line, obviously that top pairing's legit, Forsland and Ekblad. And Nico Mikkola and Dmitry Kulikov feel like guys, again, like the Oilers should be able to get a couple of opportunities against. And I'm not even going to try and say the last guy's name on the blue line. Actually, I will. Uvis Balinskis.
Attaboy, you nailed it.
There you go. I've been practicing my Latvian. And Nate Schmidt. So that one was a bit easier. And, looking at the goalies, obviously Sergei Bobrovsky's the guy going in there tonight for Florida. I had a quick look before the game of just like ways the Oilers can beat him. It really is going to be about getting him moving. In his last 10 games, he has allowed 10 goals against when in motion, and he's not been allowing a lot of goals in general. I think it was like 26 or something like that in his last 10, so 10 of them coming against when he's kind of getting moved across the crease. So the Oilers got to be a bit patient with their opportunities, I guess, but also like don't wait. Like, let's try and play a quick hockey game here as well.
Oilers lineup. This is where the conversation gets good. Chris Knobloch going back to the blender. I guess before I get to the forwards, let's start with the blue line. No Darnell Nurse tonight. Remember, he had that kind of weird, awkward collision in the game against Tampa Bay. And I'll be honest, with the head injury from earlier this year, seeing the way he went into the boards, it's day-to-day, but it makes me nervous for Darnell Nurse because you really, really don't. And again, we don't know if it's a head injury or whatever. That's just me watching the play. I mean, like, that's a guy who had a concussion already this year who went very hard into the board. So, again, hoping it's nothing related to the head for Darnell Nurse, but he is day-to-day, according to Chris Knobloch. The forward lines for the Edmonton Oilers. McDavid, Nuge, Hyman. Good. Keep that line together. Quit breaking them up. Run with them. Second line, Draisaitl, Skinner, Arvidsson. On one hand, I like this. You know what? This was the top six you envisioned coming into the year, so give them a chance. This is really one of the few times, Liam, all year that we've seen this top six put together this way. And again, this is the way it was supposed to look coming into the season. What I don't like is Matt Savoy sitting. The third line is Henrique with Janmark and Brown. Okay. The fourth line, Kapanen at center with Perry and Podkolzin. I do not remember the last time Kasperi Kapanen played center. Sitting Matt Savoy, though, is dumb. And Liam, there was a very, very easy way for us to piece this all together and to make everyone happy and for this to be a great-looking Oilers forward group. You take Janmark, put him at 4C. You take Arvidsson, put him on the third line, flip Brown over, and you put Savoy with Draisaitl and Skinner. You put two finishers with Leon. You do not reward Victor Arvidsson for being generally garbage for the last month, and you take Kapanen out of the lineup because, one, he is not a centerman, and two, he had a brutal turnover last game that cost them a goal. I would have had Savoy on line two with Skinner and Draisaitl. Again, if you want to go Skinner, Draisaitl, Arvidsson, you got to give him a look. I think you got to give him more than one game. I'm not super sold on that happening. I don't like Savoy not playing. Even if he would have been on the third line with Brown and Henrique, I wouldn't have minded it.
I like Savoy a lot. And obviously, Louis talked about it yesterday of him like knowing where to be on the ice for guys like Draisaitl, and just getting those opportunities. It felt like against Tampa Bay, he was the only one able to generate anything, especially in the third period. I know they didn't really come off his stick as well as he probably wanted him to, but like being in the spots is also a great part of it as well, something the others have lacked. I would have liked to have seen him in Arvidsson's spot as well, and Arvidsson just bumped down pretty much exactly what you just said. And I think the idea of like Arvidsson being there would be someone who can go and get pucks and get them to Draisaitl, and maybe he can get Skinner going as well, even though he is kind of going. But I feel like Savoy was doing a pretty good job of that as well, of digging in and playing an aggressive forecheck kind of game. Like, he's obviously not going to knock many people down, but he's going to get in on the people and try and create something. I think he deserves to be in this lineup. I just went back and looked to Arvidsson, Skinner, and Draisaitl have played 31 minutes and 39 seconds together so far this season. They have outshot their opponents 18-10, but have not scored a goal together at 5-on-5. So hopefully they can shake things up a little bit. And I mean, getting Arvidsson going is something that the Oilers have been trying to do all season. But if he can have a really good stretch of the last 20 games or so of the season into the playoffs, then we're cooking, because last season, this was around the same time he came back for the LA Kings as well, finished with 18 games, was pretty close. I think he had 15 points, if I'm not mistaken, pretty close to a point per game player, whatever it was. And so hopefully he can start getting his legs underneath him a little bit more and creating some chances. I just want to see him almost like simplify things, like just go to the net, just find yourself in those opportunity spots, and I think you'll be able to generate something, because we know he's a good player. He's just not shown it for the majority of the season.
Yeah, it has been frustrating, that's for sure. Stuart Skinner is going to get the start tonight, Liam, and that ties into our Sherwood Ford Giant question for the day. It is a Sherwood Ford Giant Game Day brought to you by the Nation Valet Service. Again, only 2 more days remaining for you to get in on the draw to come with us on the Nation vacation. All you got to do, sherwoodford.ca, book your service, say you want to use Nation Valet. They pick up your vehicle, drive it into the dealership, do the routine maintenance, drive it on back to you so you never have to visit the dealership again, and it's a chance for you to come on a trip to Vegas with us at the end of March. Liam, I'll put a poll over in the YouTube. Starting Stuart Skinner tonight, is that the right or wrong call?
Probably the right call. I don't think Pickett did much to also like save it, get him a game. I know Skinner played the last one. I don't think Skinner was terrible in that game by any means. He wasn't at his best, but you don't want to like create a controversy with your starting goalie, do you? I understand they're gonna want to go out there and they need to win this game, but I think Skinner probably gives you the best chance. No.
I think so. He's just been so poor in the month of February, as you can see here on the screen. 1-3-0, 4.19 goals against average, 860 save percentage. He's got to turn it around at some point. Am I confident tonight's going to be that night? I mean, I was confident Tampa was going to be the turnaround. I was feeling good after the first period, and then we saw what we saw. So I don't know. I guess it's the right call, partially because I don't think there is a true right call to make between these two goalies right now. 78% of you so far over on the YouTube saying that it is the right call. Shout out to our friends at Sherwood Ford the Giant for another Sherwood Ford Giant Game Day. Do we have game notes from them, Liam? I can't see Aaron. Is he giving you a thumbs up?
Aaron, do we have any game notes from Sherwood? We do. He's giving us a nod of the head. So
all right, run them. Let's see what our friends at Sherwood Ford have to say.
Did you know Zach Hyman has 15 points in his last 10 regular season games versus Florida? Yeah, Zach, let's go!
Leon Draisaitl is continuing his incredible season with 7 goals in his last 6 games. He now has 10 more goals than any other player in the league. Let's go Oilers!
Oilers are 4-1 in their last 5 regular season games against the Florida Panthers.
There you go. Shout out to our friends over at Sherwood Ford the Giant. It's a Sherwood Ford Giant Game Day edition of the show. We're going to get out to the guest line here in a little bit. But first, Liam, why don't we do a little rumor mill? Because it ties into a couple of questions that people were sending in. But the rumor mill brought to you by our friends over at Douglas Mattress. Back at home after my 2 weeks on the road. That first night on my Douglas was absolutely unbelievable. Proudly made in Canada, unlike many other brands. Expert craftsmanship is what they offer. They're also a locally owned and operated Edmonton company. You can go check out their very first store ever over in Manchester Square. I sleep on a Douglas. I'm telling you right now, it is not a joke. Douglas it's one of the best mattresses. It's the best mattress I've ever owned. You can get yours, douglas.ca/Oilersnation. Liam, a couple of questions in. Rusty asked it, and I think someone else did too. The idea of going and acquiring a guy like Lawson Crouse out of Utah. He's number 20 on Frank's trade targets board. He's got 2 more years at $4.3 million. I would be interested in a deal with Utah if you used a draft pick. You put Victor Arvidsson in the deal. Could you get a defenseman back and also do like a Crouse for Arvidsson kind of swap?
Yeah, that would be a great deal. I like Olli Mata as an option, a defensive first kind of guy. I think that would actually help them out quite a bit. Obviously, Lawson Crouse is probably a slightly bigger upgrade on Arvidsson too, and I've mentioned this before. He does have family in the Edmonton area, so that's maybe something that helps us get it over the line. But I just wonder if Utah really wants to do anything too crazy right now. Like, they're such an interesting team. They have so many prospects. They're obviously trying to push to make it into the playoffs. I don't know how close they'll actually end up coming to that goal, but I like the idea of making him a partner with Edmonton. Also, something that should be brought up quickly, Zach Hyman revenge game tonight. I forgot he was a Florida Panthers pick.
Ah, yes, of course. I like Krause. He's having a tough year, but he's 27. He's big. He moves. The scoring's down, but he's scored in the past. I'd be very, very intrigued to take a stab at Lawson Krause, but I think it only works if you move out a guy like Arvidsson in the process. On the blue line, I don't hate Ali Mata. Obviously, he's like a C-level addition here. I really want the Oilers to aim higher, but if you're sitting there and like the costs for the Alexiaks and the Mathesons and the whoever's it's way too high. I don't hate him as a check down, but again, I would certainly hope the Oilers are aiming higher on the blue line at the deadline. Couple of things that made me chuckle. Nick Kypreos said the LA Kings are open to trading Quinton Byfield. That would be generally insane.
It wouldn't be the first time Rob Blake has traded a promising young player from the LA Kings, would it? Brock Faber, anybody?
Shut up, Brock Faber. Nick Kypreos, I know we got to get to the guest line, but I just want to finish up this segment. Kypreos says the Blues are open for business. People are saying Binnington. The Oilers can't afford Jordan Binnington. Like $6 million. I don't know how you would get that in your cap this season. It would be very, very difficult to pull off. I like Binnington, but don't let the overtime period against USA fool you. He has been painfully average the last number of seasons. Again, the goaltending conversation, I really don't want to have it. If Colton Parayko is available, I'm hell yes, all in on getting Colton Parayko, but I highly doubt the Blues trade Colton Parayko at the trade deadline. I bet you they end up sitting and waiting on all these guys. Shen, Binnington, Parayko, they'll wait till the summer when the market's more open for these guys. Don't think we'll see them do it. Anyways, let's get out to the Star Mechanical guest line. It's Edmonton's #1 plumbing and heating company. You can find out more by visiting them online at starmechanical.ca. Scott Maxwell, our friend from Daily Faceoff, swings by. Scott, appreciate you popping on and joining us. And you wrote an article recently over at DFO about what every Canadian team could be doing ahead of the deadline. And let me start with the group of 4 buyers out of the Edmonton, Toronto, Ottawa, Winnipeg. Who do you think should be the most aggressive out of those teams? Oh, do we have audio for Scott, or is that on my end? Maybe.
Scott, it's on
Aaron?
your end. I'm not getting anything on my end.
All right, we'll have Scott reset on his link. And Liam, while Scott resets on his link, I will ask you that question. Edmonton, Winnipeg, Toronto, and Ottawa. Out of that group, which one do you think should be the most aggressive?
I think Winnipeg, to be honest. And I know obviously a lot of people want me to say Edmonton, but I think Winnipeg, there's not many years they're going to be this elite team. There's been so many times they've been knocked out in the first round when you thought they were going to make it through against whoever it may be, like the Colorado series last year. I can't believe how one-sided that ended up being. So if one of those teams I had to label as like ultimate aggressor, it has to be the Winnipeg Jets. Obviously, their star is Connor Hellebuck, but I feel like Edmonton and Toronto and their windows are open maybe a little bit longer than what Winnipeg could be, because who knows what Kyle Connor's going to do in a couple of years. I know Hellebuck and Scheifele just re-signed there, but you also have Neil Pionk as well. He's not an elite player by any means, but he's a really strong player for them. Like, I would go out. I think Brock Nelson needs to be someone. Wasn't it Frank saying that his hometown is actually closer to Winnipeg than it is Minnesota, and he's from that same state? So we just got the biggest super chat ever.
That is insane, Ravina. That is bananas.
I hope that wasn't supposed to be
Ravina Brar, who watches the
$13.99.
show.
Damn.
Wow. Ravina just dropped in $139 for the Ben Stelter Foundation. $139.99. That is absolutely unbelievable. Ravina, we're stopping the whole showdown right now to give you some love, because that is awesome. The Ben Stelter Foundation, we love you. They do such good work. We love that everybody is generous and drops in their super chats. And I love everybody in the YouTube chat right now giving Ravina some love, because that is so generous. Ravina, you are unbelievable. $139.99 to the Ben Stelter Foundation. If that isn't the kind of vibes that are going to end the Oilers 4-game slide tonight, Liam, giddy on up.
Yeah, I don't know what much else anyone could do to try and get the Oilers across the line with that kind of a donation. It's looking like we might be good to get Scott back in, according to the thumbs up I just got to Aaron. So thumbs
up from Scott. There we go, Scott. Do we got you?
Can you hear me now?
We're good.
Oh, yes, we can. That's good.
Okay,
All right, let me throw you
perfect.
the question. 4 Canadian teams that are going to be buyers, who should be the most aggressive?
I think it has to be the Winnipeg Jets because, well, you look at how much cap space they have going into the deadline and the position they're in. The world's their oyster at this deadline. They could get just about anyone that they wanted. And along with that, there is a bit more of a closing window with them, particularly with Nikolai Ehlers' contract coming up, and it doesn't seem too likely that he's going to return. So it's kind of the last chance you have with this group. So yeah, they have the best record in the league right now, so it makes the most sense for them to just get as much as they can and make the team as good as they can in front of Connor Hellebuck.
So my counter argument to all of this, and I understand where you two are coming from, Connor Hellebuck's like 21-2-2 in his last 25 games. It's absolutely insane the run that he's been on as of late. Last year, they did kind of load up. They got Monahan, they got Toffoli, and what happened? They got to the playoffs, and they fell flat. I think this team, to an extent, will go as far as Connor Hellebuck will take them. I do think they need to add a forward, but in terms of like going all in and making 2 to 3 adds, I'm almost like, no matter what they do, if Connor Hellebuck can stay Connor Hellebuck in the playoffs, then they're going to be all right, and they'll probably win a round, probably win 2 rounds. I look at a team like Ottawa, and I know they are not a Stanley Cup contender, but this team has been starved for the playoffs. This young core with Tkachuk and Stützle and Pinto Norris, all those guys have not gotten a taste of meaningful hockey yet. I think there's a lot of pressure on Steve Stais, Scott, to go and show this room, I'm giving you guys everything you need to go on a run and make the playoffs this year. Because if they don't get in, it is a massive, massive failure.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I guess I was kind of looking at the cup contenders as to who to go all in with, but for sure with the Senators as well. Like, it's been so long that they've had playoff hockey, and they definitely need it, not just for the city and the fan base, but I think like the core really needs to just get that experience. And well, yeah, like it just there's limited cap space to work with, but you really do have to make like a move or two with this team just to be like we believe in this group. You guys are making the playoffs.
It's interesting when you look at a team like the Calgary Flames you had there on the board as a long-term buyers. Like, they're in a spot now where their fan base wants them to be bottom of the NHL so they can get all these prospects. But it's clear now that they're just like not going to be in that spot. Like, who's maybe a target they could look at the trade deadline? Is Dylan Cousins someone you think they should go after?
I think, yeah, like a player of that ilk, maybe if they really want to go bold, a gamble like a Elias Pettersson. I think with the players more of Cousins and Middlestat, those kind of players, they have already sort of made that gamble at center with the Frost trade. So I think making more than one of those types of moves will, leave a little bit of uncertainty for the future and down the middle. But yeah, I think it is players like that who aren't just one and done deals. Like, they definitely should not be going for like a Brock Nelson or a Rasmus Ristolainen at the deadline when they aren't going to be cup contenders while they have those kinds of players.
Let me get your outsider view on the Oilers. Obviously, Liam and I sit here for an hour a day and throw around different, potential options and names and stuff like that. I mean, everyone always does the goaltending thing with Edmonton. I don't think it's happening, but any names out there that you view as maybe good fits in Edmonton?
The blue line is obviously their biggest priority right now. I wonder what a player like Jamie Oleksiak would look like on the Oilers. He has a very strong defensive game, and that's the kind of stability that you need on that second pairing alongside Darnell Nurse. Or if you really want to split up that Bouchard-Ekholm pair, Oleksiak isn't a bad player to pair with Bouchard either. Or if you want to go maybe on the younger side, he's a left shot, but like Bowen Byram would be an interesting gamble. But again, that also depends on the salary cap space that they have available to them at the deadline, because if they don't know if Evander Kane is going to be back during the regular season and they just can't LTIR him to the playoffs, you're going to be bargain bin shopping.
Yeah, and that really does suck for the Oilers. But even like Edmonton and Toronto both are in these kind of unique spots, I feel like, or weird spots is maybe a better way to put it, because like yes, you need to go all in every chance you have to, win a cup with McDavid and Draisaitl, win a cup with Matthews, Marner, and Nylander and that core. But at the same time, like we've seen, and maybe this is a chance to turn it to Toronto, like we've seen the Leafs do the all-in thing, and it doesn't work. We've seen the Leafs nibble around the edges, and it doesn't work. And Frank keeps dropping this line that's like, your goal is to win Stanley Cups and not press conferences. And when I look at the Toronto Maple Leafs, as much as Leafs fans are going, oh, you got to make another big splash, I'm not sold that's the right move. And again, maybe even it's similar to the Winnipeg thing where like I really do believe they will just go as far as Connor Hellebuck will carry them. If he continues to be Vezina, elite number one Connor Hellebuck, best goalie of his generation guy in the playoffs, they're going to be fine. And for the Leafs, if Matthews, Nylander, and Marner can continue to produce in the playoffs and find a way to roll over that regular season success to the postseason, then they're going to be fine. And it won't matter if they go get another third-line center, if they go trade 2 first-round picks for Braden Shen, which I think would be a very dumb thing to do. But, like, what do you make of the Leafs heading into this deadline?
It is a very interesting spot that they're in. I'll be completely honest. I'm not as super confident in this Leafs team this year as past years, which is interesting to say when this is probably the easiest run that they've had to the top of the Atlantic Division. But there are still a lot of flaws, especially in like the depth scoring, where they are relying too much on the core group of Matthews, Marner, Tavares, and Nylander. And Nyes, I guess, as well. He's really stepped up as a secondary scorer. But so I think going after particularly a third-line center would be their best move at the deadline. I like Fraser Minton as a long-term option in that spot, but he's not ready for that right now. So I think having someone who can bridge that gap would be good. That's also, like, I agree with you on Braden Shen. I don't think he's a good fit because that's a much longer bridge that you're extending there, and I think with the contract that he's on, it's not going to age well. It already hasn't aged well, and it's not going to age well even further as he gets older and older. Scott Lawton has been the name that's been thrown around a lot with him. That would make a ton of sense. And sometimes there's been people have thrown around Dylan Cozens as well with that. Would be tough to see that one, how that would fit in there, but I think just depth scoring to give a bit more support to the top 4 scorers, because that has always been the issue come playoff time, is it's been really easy to hyper focus on the core 4 scorers in the playoffs because no one else is going to threaten you.
Yeah. Go ahead, Liam.
I was just going to say, this is one isn't necessarily just for like Canadian teams, but when you look through Frank's board of what's he at now, 40, I think. Is there a player on there you see as a perfect fit for a certain team in the NHL?
Oh, that's a tough one. Well, I guess Brock Nelson with the Winnipeg Jets. Not even just because it's a Canadian team, but that connection's always been made, and it really makes a ton of sense. They need a second-line center this year. Maybe Cole Perfetti fills that role in the long term, but he just hasn't quite yet. So I think finding a player that can, much like with the Leafs, bridge that gap would be perfect for him. And Nelson's probably the best center on the market this year. And also, like, Frank has made the connections as well with how close his hometown. So I'm sure it wouldn't be too hard to convince him to go there. But obviously, like as Tyler mentioned before, the Jets have been so good that you wonder if you do need to make a change with this team. But I feel like if you can strengthen that second line center role, that would be huge for the Jets come playoff time.
Scott, as always, man, appreciate your time. Thanks for popping on. You can read his work over at Daily Faceoff. We'll chat again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
There you go. Scott Maxwell from Daily Faceoff. Liam, it's a Sherwood Ford Giant Game Day. We got to sprint to the finish here. We're actually running out of time on the show. Let's do our Bet365 Game Day Betting Challenge, brought to you by Bet365. Download the app. Use the promo code NATION, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Excited to 24 more games left in the Bet365 Game Day Betting Challenge. Liam continues to run away with this thing. Not great. I'm back in the negatives. That's really not great. Jay is 2-30.
Maybe not the best luck.
No, not great at all. I mean, I've hit some bangers, so my record stinks, but the units aren't bad. Here's what I got for tonight's hockey game. Just a little low-key one. Evan Rodriguez has hit this in 5 straight games. Leon Draisaitl, again, playing great. I think it's a big game, emotional game. He's going to come out firing. I'm playing these two together, a nice clean plus 180 that will push me back to the positive side of things. Liam, what do you like tonight?
One thing. Oilers are the dogs, and I'm going with an Oilers money line win plus 115. I'm manifesting, like Ravina, whatever it takes.
They got one job tonight.
If Ravina would have given that $139.99 to Jay, he would have been even on the year with all his bets. Jay, who is on a plane to Paris right now, Draisaitl to score under 6.5, and Oilers in reg. So Jay goes plus 750. Draisaitl's red hot. I looked at the Draisaitl goal, but I'm also like, eventually he's going to not score in a game. They can't just keep scoring every game. I don't know. Maybe he can, but that's Jay's bet for our friends at Bet365. Also, Liam, we have a new little partnership with our friends over at Safeway. I know we talked about it a little bit yesterday, but if you download the Safeway app, they are doing a new NHL Pick'em where you pick the winners of 5 NHL games each week for your chance to win the grand prize, which is a trip for 4 to the 2025-26 season opener of your choice. Every week, get rewarded with exclusive grocery offers from NHL supplier partners just for playing. Each correct pick gets you closer to a chance at winning up to 150,000 Scene Plus points as well. A new slate of games opens up every Thursday, so download the app today. Get in on your picks, courtesy of our friends at Safeway. Liam, you and I both did this. 5 games. You can pick any throughout the next week in the NHL. Do we have our picks? Can we see them?
They're coming.
Aaron's working through him, but I can tell you that last week I went 3 for 2 on my picks, which wasn't too bad. My losses were kind of weird. Obviously the Oilers I had against Philadelphia, which is I actually thought was probably the lock of the week. But then I had Washington, who were at home against the Calgary Flames and still lost. So that was a surprising one too. But I hit Winnipeg twice. I can't remember what the other one was, but I went 3 for 2. So now I am only I think it was 15 correct picks away from getting a prize. So not that bad.
All right. This week, I'm not picking any of the games tonight, but you still got to submit them for the week. So I'm going Colorado to beat Mini tomorrow night. I'm doing Columbus to win the Stadium Series on Saturday against Detroit. Next Tuesday, Jets to beat the Islanders, and the Oilers to beat the Ducks. That feels like a layup. And then the Sens next Wednesday to beat the Hawks. So those are my 5. You got to go, again, try go 5 for 5, get entered into the grand prize draw. Those are my picks. Shout out to our new friends over at Safeway. Liam, let's wrap up the show. Keys to victory for our friends at Sherwood Power Sports and Marine. They are hockey fans helping hockey fans right in the heart of Sherwood Park. Whether it's boats, ATVs, all the accessories that go with it, Sherwood Power Sports and Marine. They're also heading to the Edmonton Boat and Sportsman Show, March 20th to 23rd. Come join them to view all the latest boats along with ATVs. They also have a dedicated booth just for fish and tackle. Liam and I are going to be out at the Boat and Sportsman Show, I believe, as well with our friends at Sherwood Power Sports and Marine. Liam, let's wrap up this show. Keys to victory. What do you got?
To me, it's got to be... just got to limit your mistakes, haven't you, really? That seems to be the thing that's plaguing the Oilers so bad. Like, they're not even... the other team isn't even working that hard to beat them. The Oilers just beating themselves. So don't beat yourself tonight. Like, try and play a conservative game with the puck. But then when you're in the offensive zone, like, you got to get Bobrovsky moving. So I know that's kind of covers a few areas, but my main one is just, like, limit your mistakes.
Did we miss a super chat? I just saw Duran drop in a comment. He said, are we not reading every super chat? I'm pretty sure we have been. Did we miss one?
Oh, we did. Duran dropped $7 in.
No, what'd he say? I can't. It's not even up on my end.
Okay, so it says, sorry, Duran, I'll read it right now. So my guess is the guys are sitting are safe for not being traded. The guys playing in their last chance to either make an impression or get gone. Well, Savoy definitely isn't.
I see what you're saying, and there's a lot of people who keep saying, like, it's a showcase. It's a showcase. If you're showcasing Victor Arvidsson at this point, that's miserable. Like, there's just no way. I get what you're saying, though, Duran. Like, last chance for a Skinner or Arvidsson to prove themselves. Sure. I just still don't like that 2 games, 3 games into Matt Savoy's career we're healthy scratching him. I think that's kind of dumb. Maybe it was the plan. Maybe it's load management. Maybe they want him sitting and taking a look and learning some things after a few games. Maybe. I still don't like it. Anyways, my key to victory, Liam, I like what you said about limiting your mistakes, not just in the sense of, like, I feel like people hear mistakes and they just think turnovers, right?
Yeah.
Stuart Skinner, stop making mistakes. He's been making a lot of mistakes. A mistake can be Matthias Janmark getting a puck in the slot and dusting it off, not shooting, right? Matt Savoy not being able to take advantage of a good bounce. Like, those are also mistakes. So they got to be opportunistic tonight. They need to just, yes, limit the mistakes. They need to get back to their dangerous levels of creating. There's a lot of things we need to see from the Edmonton Oilers tonight. And as our boy Jordan Buhat in the chat says, without Nurse tonight too, it's going to be a tall order for the Oilers to win the Stanley Cup Final rematch tonight in Florida. They obviously lost the first meeting of the season back in Edmonton. Tonight, they're looking to change things up. Liam, that is a wrap on our show today. Camera, audio issues, we grinded through a lot of it. I'm going to take a nap because my voice is about to give out on me. Everybody enjoy the game tonight. Tune in to Pre-Gaming with Boardsy at 4 o'clock this evening right here on the Oilers Nation YouTube. Post-game immediately following the final buzzer, and then come right back here noon Mountain Time tomorrow for another edition of Oilers Nation every day. We'll chat with you all tomorrow. Oil up.